And then it says I'm going live on my Instagram, but I got to figure out how to do that. Let's see. How do I do that on Instagram as well? All right, we're going to try it. Or maybe I can't. Probably have to do it on my phone. I think Instagram's a phone thing. All right, well, whatever. All right. Hey, welcome to Cosmic Matters. I'm Matt Washington, and thank you for taking the time to watch a This Matters video. So the objective of the This Matters, woo, let me get the voice going first. So the objective of the This Matters video series is to give you a different perspective of the world that we live in. And by doing so, I hope to, entertain your brain a little bit, having it contemplate something that you may not think about on a normal day to day. So, my dream is to be a full-time creator of content for you. So if you'd like to support that dream and enjoy the videos that I put out and the podcast I put out, you can just like this video, leave a comment, leave a heart if you're on TikTok. And this is the beginning of the journey. This is episode 2. Episode 1, I didn't have a microphone. Well, so give you a little behind the scenes here. I did have a microphone, but I forgot to turn it on because I'm a noob, and it was playing through my internal speakers. And my co-host sounded a lot better. We'll see if Muhammad joins us today. I sent him out the link. We'll see if he's up and he wants to join. But yeah, I was total newbie, and I had the microphone there and I had it plugged in, but I didn't have it. I didn't select it as the mic to be used. So this is, and then after that, I was like, oh, it's my mic stinks. So I went out and got a new mic. So maybe, talking about Cosmic Matters, maybe that was maybe that mistake and the wrong interpretation of the mistake is what forced me to get this mic, and which will make me and I love this thing, the arm. I can move forward, I can move back, I can change my colors. Ooh, maybe should we go with a blue? What should we do today, people? I don't. Oh yeah, let's do this. This kind of goes with the background, right? So behind me is, you can't see it on TikTok, sorry, but and now I'm away from the mic. Oh, I moved mic. So this is the Eye of God Nebula, one of my favorite nebulas of all the nebulas, and it just is symbolic of the universe being God, quote unquote God, and the God in the sense of what we are, and we are that nebula. All the atoms in there are continuous with all the atoms in us, and we'll talk about that even more, and that concept even more as we go through this. So, but I was saying, hey, any interaction with the video would be great. Leave a comment. I respond to every single message on all of my. If you're watching this not live and you're just watching the post, we have I'm working on my ahs and my ums. I'm going to be working on that, so you can point it out. Maybe somebody can start a counter of how many times I do the or the ah or the and or the you knows. My you knows are very high, so I'm working on that as well. But I'm responding to every single message. I love responding to messages, even if they're negative messages, even if like I don't like your haircut or your screen looks bad or your mic is stupid or whatever. There's another one. So point being is, leave a comment. I will respond. Sometimes I make whole video responses to the comments. I do that very often on my TikTok page. I like the positive ones, but I actually like the negative ones as well, because it gives me some more content and some things I can respond to and to write back to. Also, if you want additional videos, access to polls, you want to be a guest, you want to come on up. Like right now, since I'm new and young at this, I'll bring up anyone. So if you want to be on the show and you want to give some thoughts or just sit in on the show and you're on my Patreon, I'll be happy to do that at this point, just because of where we are at the beginning of this whole journey. So Again, my birthday is coming up. It's September 13th, and I will be 49. So my goal by 50 is to be pretty good at this, stay consistent for an entire year, and then be able to, do this full time and just create a lot of content for you guys. So remember, nothing matters unless it matters to you, because you are the creator of your universe. And with that being said, let's dive into today's topic. So today's topic, what I'm going to be talking about, is the big and the small of things when we talk about the universe. And I was having a conversation last night with a friend of mine, Jeffrey Paul Bobrick. Ooh, I don't know. I guess should I say people's whole names? Sorry, Jeffrey, if I added your name. But I was talking to JPB, and he came. He's doing a fair, or the seafood festival, and he's selling his products. And then we were talking. We went out and we were having a discussion about the universe, as usual, as what I'm talking about. And I was showing him a video about black holes, and I can't wait to do that video, by the way. I truly, as more and more science comes out and I learn more and more, I was watching a Brian Cox video about black holes and all the information and what our universe actually is. And as they study more black holes, I am definitely of the opinion that our entire universe is a black hole of another universe. I thought that before. I remember when I first heard that concept, I thought that was pretty cool. I was like, that makes sense, right? Because just intrinsically, I was like, all right, we came from a big bang, which was a one point in time. No, it wasn't in time. It was a singular point, the singularity, and expanded rapidly into our universe, and it's still expanding. We think of the Big Bang as something that happened a long time ago, but the universe right now is currently expanding faster than the speed of light. So if something is expanding faster than the speed of light, then has it stopped banging? Pause, I guess. That's what the new kids say, right? What the youngins say these days. So has it ever stopped banging? Is it still going? The universe is still exploding. It's still expanding faster than the speed of light. So, and because it's expanding, and one of the things that they don't understand, is why hasn't gravity pulled it back in? And this is where dark energy comes from. It's the idea of, like, there's this energy that's making the universe continue to expand, again, faster than the speed of light. Now, people will also say, like, you can't go faster than the speed of light, but the speed of light, for those of you who don't know this, the speed of light is not some kind of speed limit. How would I explain this? It's not the fact that that's how fast light goes, and somebody at some point said, that's it, that's the fastest thing in the universe, so therefore you can't go faster than that. The speed of light travels at this speed because it fulfills the property of when you lose all mass. When all mass is gone, then you can accelerate. You can go. Here's the fastest you can go if you have no mass. And a proton, a photon, I should say, not a proton, a photon of light has no mass, so it's going as fast as it can, and that is the fastest something can go, because you shedded all your mass, right? Because you can't go negative mass. So the concept of the universe expanding faster than the speed of light is because the rules of the universe outside of the universe do not apply to things inside the universe, right? So there isn't, the expansion of the universe isn't like a speed type of thing. It's hard to conceptualize this, but that being said, before I go down that hole, I'm going to go down a whole rabbit hole with that. Just understand that. So there's energy being pumped. So they're saying, well, why hasn't gravity pulled all these things together? You have these super massive black holes. You have these giant stars throughout the universe. You have all these things in the universe. All this meant, why is it still expanding? Where's the energy coming from? And this is where they have come up, with the term dark energy. So that continues to push the universe apart. And at this rate, what would end up happening eventually, if you go through enough time, is at one point we thought that our galaxy was, well, one point we thought our planet was the only planet, right? And then we found other planets, so we called that. And then as we learned more about our solar system, we came up with the galaxy and all the stars and things that are in our galaxy. Excuse me. Let me drink some water here. So, and then we discovered that there are other galaxies, that's not a star. That's actually a bunch of stars. As our telescopes got better and as our understanding of the universe got better, we understood more galaxies. And then we realized actually how many galaxies there are. If you've ever seen, actually, I should probably see if I can pull it up. There's a video, maybe we'll watch it next week. That actually be good for next week. Because we're going to talk about this concept of size multiple times. Because it is something you really got to understand to have these discussions. So there's something called, there's a picture called the Ultra Deep Field. And the Ultra Deep Field is, before they got the James Webb telescope out there, the Hubble telescope was the best telescope that we had. And as far as the Hubble telescope, what they did is they said, let's take a look at nothing, like what's in nothing. And so what they did is they thought it was gonna be a waste of time, by the way, when they did this, but they took the Hubble telescope and they pointed it at a section of the sky that was equivalent to you taking your thumb and holding it out like that. And if you put that up into the sky and looked at it, your thumbnail would be covering the patch of sky that they looked at, right? And it was black. There was nothing there. They said, let's just look at an empty part of space. And then what they did is they pointed the Hubble telescope at that patch of sky for 11 days. And they just let the receptors take in any light that they could find, because the longer they stared at it, the more light they could pick up on the telescope. And what they found was amazing. So take your time. Maybe next, let me write that down for next week. We'll look at the Ultra Deep Field. Next week thoughts. Ultra Deep Field. So for those of you that don't know this stuff, and I mean, maybe if you're watching this type of content, you already know all these things, and I'm just telling you basic stuff. But if you're just hanging out because you want to learn something new, then here we go. So they looked at the Ultra Deep Field, and what they found in this section of the sky, and it was like just southwest of, or southeast, I guess, if you're southwest, if you're looking at the moon, it was just southwest of the moon. And what they found in this picture, it was called the most important picture ever taken by mankind. But what they found in this picture was not just stars, but they found galaxies. They found over 10,000 galaxies. Actually, I'm going to pull it up because now we're talking about it, so now I got to pull it up. All right, Ultra Deep Field. 10,000 galaxies in this space, in this patch of black sky that was uninteresting and nothing to look at. And that's what they ended up, seeing. And so it's pretty darn cool. Let me, I'm going to pull it up here for a second for those who want to see it. I'm getting messages from somebody. Hold on. Let me pull up my screen. Here we go. All right. So this is the Ultra Deep Field right here. And so you can look it up yourself here. But every single little light, every smudge, everything that you see in this picture is a galaxy. So there's 10,000 of them in this picture, and this was, again, if you took your hand like this and went like this, and you put it up in the sky, what your thumbnail is blocking is these 10,000 galaxies. By the way, all of these galaxies have anywhere from a million to over a billion stars in them, right? And so just the concept here, yeah, here it is. Just reading here, deep field image. Estimated 10,000 galaxies in this picture that they took, the Hubble telescope, from September 2003 to January 2004. They did this a couple times. So it's called the Hubble Ultra Deep Field. So just to think about that, right? And that many stars are in empty space. Like, we look in the sky, and so supposedly, I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he said if you look in the sky with just your naked eyes, and you're not near like New York City, you're not like a city and there's a lot of light pollution, you could see around 3,000 stars in the night sky, and or maybe it was 1,000. I think it was 3,000 if you use binoculars, and if you use telescopes, you can see more. But you got to think of that, like 10,000 galaxies in a patch of nothing. What is actually out there? And so I guess that should lead us into our topic, the topic that I want to talk about today, which is how big and how small things are. And so I'm constantly talking. So what led me to this topic? I changed topics like 5 times in my thought process. By the way, we were also doing some Alan Watts at the end of the last 30 minutes or so. I have a video from Alan Watts we're going to dissect as well. But so I was having this conversation with JPB, and at dinner last night, and I was explaining some things. So I was saying some things, and I could see on his face, number one, like a little bit of confusion, but also doubt. Like, when I was making these comments, he was kind of like, and it was, for me, what I have to remember is that I have watched hundreds of, I might have surpassed 1,000 hours of Alan Watts talks and YouTube videos about the cosmos and the whole religion of, it's not even a religion, I guess, the idea of Buddhism and Hinduism, and listen to just basically Alan Watts a lot. And so these concepts, what I have to remember is when I share things with other people, that they haven't spent this much time. So I'm making my conclusions based upon a lot of time spent on these subjects, and giving my conclusion to somebody who has spent zero time, or very little time with these concepts and ideas. So I'm sure that if somebody said what I said to him last night, and it was me from 25 years ago, I would have had the same face. I would have been like, okay, that's nice to think about. That's a nice idea, but I don't know if that's true or not, right? Because that was the vibe that I got from him as I was explaining the whole concept of the universe is us, and we are the universe, and the concept of a God being, or the consciousness, things we talked about in the last episode, last week's video. And so it annoyed me in the moment, because I'm like, why isn't he getting it? Why doesn't everybody just believe the way I believe? Because again, it's like, I forget that I have to go down. We have to go down this journey to understand these things. And some people, it's not the journey that they want to go down. And that's fine. And nobody even has to believe any of this stuff. It doesn't really matter. Going back to the cosmic matters to me, right? So, and hopefully it matters to you a little bit, and understanding these concepts. So that's why I decided to go back to the beginning here, and understanding just the big and small of things, because it's kind of interesting. And so I always go to the same. You probably even have heard this before, or maybe you haven't. I always assume people have heard things that I say, but the idea and the concept, because I say it a lot, is of how our mind works. Like, our mind and our brains have developed through evolution to just keep us alive, right? They're just not, they're evolved to make us procreate and keep us safe. right? Which is why we have fear mechanisms, and it's not, our brains are not programmed to understand the way the world is right now. It takes evolution, takes millions of years, to pass to pass different, have different changes take effect as far as the species go. And so, we're evolved to, need food and try to make ourselves safe. Humans are not very good at defending themselves. We don't have claws. We're not exceptionally fast. We're not exceptionally strong. What the reason we're able to, some people say, oh, it's because we're so smart that we were able to survive. And no, the reason we're able to survive is because we work together. We have the ability to work together and came into groups, and as working together as groups, we're able to protect ourselves. And this is where, wow, this is totally off the rails here, but this is where our morality came from, right? Because things like killing someone in the group, or stealing from the group, or lying to the group, we see these things as wrong, because if we couldn't trust the people in our group, then the group would fail and we would die. All right, so those things immediately became whatever, bad, morally bad, just because of the fact that, by the way, the lions don't care if they lie to each other, right? So they don't have the same morality as us, as far as that goes. So we'll do a whole thing on morality, because it always leads into some weird areas, and I don't want to go there today, this morning. But the concept that our brain evolved in a world where it's just trying to make us survive, and it's not prepared to understand things like this, like what's behind me, or the ultra deep field, or millions and trillions and septillions of things. Like we don't have to deal with even a trillion. We don't really even understand that. Like some people are talking about how Elon Musk is going to be the first trillionaire, and we don't understand really what a trillion is. There's always those videos like they take, here's what a million is, here's what a billion is, here's what a trillion is, and it just blows our mind every time, because we're like, oh, like it just sounds like words. They all have illions at the end. It's just different letter on the front. How different could they be? And so, again, a million seconds. You're going to hear this if you listen to this podcast a lot. You're going to hear this a lot. But a million seconds, if you want to count to a million, it would take you 6 days. Oh, excuse me, 6 days. 11 days. Take you 11 days to get there, if you do the math. And if you said, you counted 1, 2, 3, and you counted, every second for 11 days, that's a million seconds if you do the math. So it's like, okay, well, how much is a billion seconds? Must be, and if you ask people, this is one of the things I like to do with people all the time, is I ask them, I go, how long do you think a million seconds is? And usually, sometimes they're just way off. No one, very rarely does somebody get it right. And even when they think about it, and then I give them the next one. Okay, well, how much do you think a billion seconds is? And they go, well, if 11 days is a million, maybe a month, maybe 2 months. Sometimes they say a year. But the answer is 31 years. So it's 31 years. So a million is 11 days, and a billion, if you wanted to count from the minute you were born, when you got to 31, you could stop counting. Then you would get to a billion. That's how much a billion is. So when you talk about millionaires versus billionaires, it's ridiculous how far away. You hear Elon Musk's favorite phrase that he says all the time is, it's an order of magnitude bigger or smaller. Like so, an order of magnitude is that's what it is. Adding a zero. Well, it's not millions to billions. That's adding 3 zeros. So that's 3 magnitudes. But that concept of going from 11 days to 31 years, understanding the difference between a million and a billion. It's like I say this to people a lot. It's like, hey, if you want to get to a billion, that means you have to have 900. Think about just being a millionaire. If I'm a millionaire, I have $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Somebody gets a sports contract for $100 million. I remember that was a big thing when Alex Rodriguez got $100 million contract, back in the day, back in the 90s. That was a lot of money. and it was like spread over 10 years, right? So like $100 million. Well, great. Now you want to get to $1 billion, you have to take that contract and then, have 9 more of them, right? On top of that. And that would be $1 billion. So now let's go to the next level. So the next level is $1 trillion, right? So if 1 million is 11 days and $1 billion takes 31 years, how long would it take you to count to $1 trillion? If Elon's going to be the first trillionaire, right? How much is that? Well, add 3 zeros. So now you're at 31,000 years. 31,000 years. Again, it's just a number. It's just a big number, but we have to take our mind's eye and understand what that means. I mean, we're in the year 2025 right now. So that's 15 times our calendar since the birth of Christ, right? So that's 15 times that of all the things. Think of how much stuff has happened in the last 2,000 years to humanity. And now you're saying $1 trillion, if you wanted to count to $1 trillion, is 31,000 years. That's how big $1 trillion is, right? So our perception of this is just crazy. Even I just talked about the ultra deep field. It's like there's 10,000 galaxies in that picture. And then on top of that, each galaxy has anywhere from 1 million to 1 billion stars in it. So now you have 10,000 galaxies times 1 billion stars, 100 million, 200 million, 300 million stars. By the way, I didn't say a million. Did I say a million stars? It's 100 million to 1 billion stars in them. And again, that's in the span of your thumbnail when you hold it up. So that's just a little patch of square in space when we look at the entire sky, right? That's out there. And then not only the entire sky we can see, but on the other side of the earth, there's a whole other sky that we're not seeing. So sorry, flat earthers, it's around. So the point being is, when you think of all that, it's again putting it in perspective on how big things are and how much space there is. And we're not even there yet, right? So just trying to make sure that we understand the concepts of millions and billions and trillions. And then last week we talked about this, but I want to keep bringing it up, because last week's audio wasn't good, is the concept of miles, like how far and how big things are. So I asked Muhammad at the time. I was like, I had woke up one day and I said to myself, like, how many miles in a light year? Like, I've heard people say this thing is so many light years away, or this star is this many light years, or the universe is this many light years across. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Let's think about that. How many miles does light travel in a year? Let's put that into concept. And so I looked it up and I said, okay, well, let's look it up. And so I looked it up. So if you had to guess, put in the comments before you before you guess. But if you had to guess how many miles that a photon of light travels in the span of a year, how much time is that? Or excuse me, how many miles is that? And the answer, by the way, is 5.88 trillion miles. Trillion, like, so remember the 31,000 I talked about? So trillion miles in 1 year. That's how fast light goes. Now, the cool thing about this that we're gonna dive into when we go into more of the time discussion is that once you reach the speed of light, time stops. Right. So I had another discussion with a friend of mine, Jason, and we were talking about time and time in a black hole, and we're talking about, and I think it's kind of interesting. At the time of that discussion, it was really cool. What I pulled out of that is there's 2 instances where we know time stops, like time doesn't exist anymore. And actually, Brian Cox, I was listening to him, like I said, last night, and he talked about in a black hole, that's the end of time. Like, time comes to a point and then it stops. Like time doesn't exist. And in black holes, time doesn't exist because of the fact that there's no space. Right? Space and time are two sides of a coin. Right? You can't have just one side. You can't just have the heads part. You can't just have the front side of a coin. You need both sides. Everything in the universe comes in together. You can't have life without death. You can't have front without back. You can't have, up without down, north without south, right? So these things exist. They come into existence, and they're necessary for each other, right? I watched a whole Alan Watts thing about the yin yang, right? And what the yin yang represents is the light side of a mountain and the dark side of a mountain, which I didn't know. But anyway, it was talking about how things come into existence together, and time and space you need both of those things, right? So if there's no space, there's no time. And if there's no time, there's no space, because you would need time. If something is apart, you need time between them to get from one to the other, for light to travel, for any kind of travel into space. So any kind of space there needs to be some time. But if there's no space, if everything is in one spot, then there's no time anymore, because there's no need for time to pass, because there is no space. There's nothing. Anything that you need to do is already there. It's already in one spot, right? When you talk about, we learn in elementary school about dimensions, and when we learn math, and the first dimension is a point, right? And they say, and I never understood a point. We just kind of skim past it. I'm going to do also another podcast about all the things that we just skim past that don't make sense, but we just accept them. So a point, they're like, okay, well, the first level, the first dimension is a point, and it has no height, it has no width, it has no depth. It's just a point. I'm like, well, then it doesn't exist. I remember even in a young age, I was like, well, how does that even exist if there's nothing? If there's it's an imaginary thing, and that's what they just tell you that. They go, there's a point, and then they go onto a line. They just kind of go, meh, just forget about that concept that we just made up, and let's go to a line. And a line is something that connects 2 points, right? So at a point, there's no time. You can't go anywhere. One of the things I loved in college was paradoxes. I love paradoxes. Like, so there's Zeno's paradox. Ooh, I'm going to do a whole, getting a lot of ideas. Zeno's paradoxes. So you can look up Zeno and his paradoxes. But one of the paradoxes that Zeno talks about is that it's impossible to move, right? It's called the paradox, the halfway paradox, or something along those lines. And the concept is what Zeno is trying to prove is that all motion, everything is an illusion, right? Ooh, I got to go back and look into the Zeno paradoxes. But all motion, he said, all motion is an illusion. It's impossible, and I can prove it mathematically. And the concept is, so you see, I wonder if I can do this. So you see there's a star here and there's a star here, right? And so if I wanted to go from one to the other, the fastest way to get between those two would be a straight line. But if the straight line is the fastest way to get between those two, then if this is point A and that's point B, point C would be somewhere around my ear, which would be a midpoint, right? There would be a midpoint C in order to get from A to B. Okay, well, if we have to go from A to C, then there's going to be another midpoint somewhere over here called midpoint D, right? And in order to get to A to D, there's going to be another midpoint, midpoint E. And the alphabet's not good enough, but the point you're getting it is there's going to be more and more midpoints. There's going to be a midpoint, a midpoint, a midpoint, and as small as you possibly can get, you're going to get to the point where it's impossible to move. It's impossible. How could you transverse an infinite number of midpoints to get anywhere? Because you'd have to go through infinity, because there's an infinite number of midpoints, because a point has no height, width, or depth. It's an imaginary thing. So there's infinite numbers. So how could you possibly get anywhere? How could anything move? Right? But of course, we know in reality I can easily do that, right? But that should be impossible based on the mathematics, right? So that's one of what's called Zeno's paradoxes. He's got a bunch of them as far as those go. Whew. Excuse me. So what I was getting at is that there's no time at a point level. And in a black hole where the gravity is so dense that everything goes to one point, then time would stop inside that. So everything being at one spot is a time that a spot where time stops. But as I was just talking about before, the light traveling at the speed of light, when you reach the speed of light, time also stops. Like time, so there's something called time dilation. And again, by the way, I'm not a physicist, and I'm not, if I'm saying something wrong, feel free to jump in my comments and yell at me. But this is my understanding as a normal non-physicist person. but as far as this goes, when you go to the speed of light, time stops. And so the concept of these, for example, these stars that are floating around my head that you can't see on TikTok, unfortunately, but the light, somebody has probably told you at some point in your life that when you look into space and you're looking at stars, that you're actually you're looking into the past, because it's taken, those stars are light years away, and so it's taken basically light 1,000,000 years, 10,000 years, however far away the stars. So, like for example, the closest star to our star, the closest star to us is obviously the sun. So the sun, for example, when you look at the sun, you're looking into the past, because it takes the light 8 minutes to get from the sun to your eyeball. Right. So you're looking in the past. So you're looking 8 minutes into the past when you're looking. By the way, you're always looking into the past. Every when I'm looking at my hand right now, my hand, yes, it's my perception, my mind has not evolved to see any difference in time from when I move my finger like this, and from the actual movement of my finger to when that light that bounces off this light that hits this, that goes into my retina, that goes to my brain that says, oh, my finger is moving. In that amount of time has passed. It's such a small amount of time that doesn't really affect me. I could, if I tried to poke myself, I can move, right? I can move out of the way in time, because it's such a small amount of time, right? Oh, yes, dry matter, right? Then there's entanglement. Yeah, I can't even get to entanglement. We're at episode 2, but yeah, entanglement's a whole nother thing. They were talking I might even we're gonna watch eventually that video with the Brian Cox, and he talks about how the inside of the black hole and the outside of the black hole, that there's a wormhole inside. Like people, like my conception of a black hole is, because it's like there's a certain amount of space that the black hole is taking, and then there's the event horizon and things fall into the black hole, and then as they fall to the middle, and in the middle, that's where the point exists, right? That's not how it works at all. And they talked about it's a really interesting video, and he just talks about how, like, there's probably a wormhole in the middle of the black hole, because what you're seeing on the edge, there is no like center of the black hole, because all of the information that goes into the black hole, due to the Hawking's radiation, gets immediately put to the outside of the black hole. Yeah, too deep for episode 2, right? And he talked about, there was also this whole concept I was watching about entangled particle. You mentioned entanglement, in that there's, what if 2 atoms get entangled and one goes into the black hole and one doesn't, right? Where does it go? And can something in this universe then affect what's going on in the black hole, right? Sorry, I gotta move around a little bit here. So the this whole entanglement's too much. It's too much for my brain, and for this one. So we're gonna try to keep it simple, mind blowing today. That at least I can try to understand. And the funny thing is, nobody understands this stuff. They're still writing papers about black holes. They're still trying to understand these concepts because it's we aren't evolved to try to figure this out. Like, we don't need to figure this out. This is kind of why I do Cosmic Matters and all of this matter stuff. It's thinking about things that exist, but we don't need to think about. And honestly, we don't need to think about anything, so the things that are important. I don't know why my maybe I get closer. I don't know why my shoulders keep disappearing into my screensaver, but oh, I got some more hearts up here. Thank you for the hearts on the live. Appreciate it much. Hey, Millie J. Yeah, I am. I'm into solar. We're talking about stars right now, and we're talking about the big and the small. Let me move my thing closer to me here. So I'm on YouTube Live. This is, by the way, every Sunday from 10 to 12 doing Cosmic Matters. I'll be live on TikTok as well, just so you guys can watch here. But if you want to watch the actual videos that we're going to share are on YouTube under Philosophy Man 76. So you can check us out there, and you can check out my Patreon, which is This Matters, patreon.com, This Matters podcast. So yeah, so let me get back to time stopping. So as far as time stopping, so now you have time stops when you're going as fast as you possibly can. And when I talk about, so that's what I was getting at. So when you're looking up in space and you're seeing stars, you're looking into the past. When you're looking at the sun, you're always looking into the past. But the sun is far enough away so that it takes 8 minutes for the light from the sun to reach your eyes. But the concept there is from the perspective, that's from your perspective, from the perspective of the photon, of the light that's leaving the sun, it hits your eyes the minute it's created. There's no time passes because it's traveling at the speed of light. So it doesn't take 8 minutes to the photon. It takes 8 minutes for you because you're not traveling at the speed of light. But it takes 8 minutes it takes no time for the photon to get to you. And that's not just the 8 minutes from the sun. Now you talk about like the next closest star to us after the sun, which is Proxima Centauri. So that is 4.24 light years away, right? So what does that mean? So what that means is it takes 4.2 years for that light traveling at the speed of light to get to your eye. So if you looked at Proxima Centauri in the sky, you're looking you're looking basically 4 years in the past, right? Because it's the speed of light. So you're looking 4.24 years into the past of what that star looked like when that light left it. Now, we can't even see detail in the star. So for us, it's just a shiny little thing in the sky. But you're looking 4 years in the past, right? So the farther you look in the universe, the more we're all looking like this. This nebula doesn't look like this anymore in our time. This is what it looked like when all the light left this nebula millions of years ago, right? Because we'll get to that next. But the concept of, so when we think about time, the faster things go, time slows down, right? This is when we look at our phones, for example. Our phones are coming from satellites, and the satellites are traveling very fast around the Earth. That's why they're orbiting the Earth, because they're traveling at very high speeds. So because they are traveling at very high speeds, their time is dilated and their time is different. So you have in your phone, the time that you're seeing, they actually have a calculation and they adjust the time so it doesn't mess up your clocks, as far as that works out. So my shoulder keeps disappearing in my background. I'm going to have to do a different background next time around. So as far as so it keeps so time dilation is a real thing. So then what is the real time? Like, I always hate when I watch a movie and they talk about, and there's aliens. Like, I'm watching Resident Alien right now on Netflix. Is it Netflix? I think it's on Netflix, right? Or Peacock, one or the other. And they talk about years. Like, the fact that they call themselves aliens is just, it just shows our hubris as a species. It's like aliens would come here and call themselves aliens. Right? It's like, no, they wouldn't. They'd just be beings, their own beings. They would see us as the aliens, but they call themselves aliens. Why would they do that? And the same thing is talking about light years. Like, a light year only means something to us. It wouldn't be something on Star Trek, because a year anywhere other than Earth is a different amount of time. Our year is 365 days. If you went to, I wonder what the let me see. How long is like if we lived on Mars? How long is a Mars year? So a Mars year is 687 days, right? So it would be like 2 years for us, right? Almost, a little bit more than that, right? A little bit more than 2 years. So the point being is, so what is a light year then? A light year to them is different than a light year here, right? So the concept that other species, other things on other planets would use the word light year, it wouldn't make any sense unless you were human, and we're humans talking to other humans, so we say these things and just attribute it to aliens and whatever else is out there. But all right, I'm on another tangent. Point being, the idea and the concept of time stopping, right? So to the photon, even though it's traveling hundreds of thousands of light years, and by the way, when we say, I always like to try to, again, perspective. It takes hundreds of thousands of light years for some of this light to get to us, millions in some cases. A light year is 5.88 trillion miles, right? so if it's 4 light years away, so if we talk about like Proxima Centauri, that's 4 light years away, and light travels 5.88 trillion miles in a year. Now you're looking at that star is 24.9 trillion miles away to the next closest star. I'm slowly getting eaten by the universe on my it's driving me insane. Maybe I might do. Oh, maybe it's because it's the mic stand that's doing it. Beautiful. All right, so that's a little bit better. Hopefully you can still hear me pretty well. So oh, right, because it's the black of the mic stand that's throwing my camera off. It's good to learn things, right? So as far as that is, so 24.9 trillion miles is what that light is traveling, and to the photon itself, because it's traveling at the speed of light, no time at all went past. Zero. If you were traveling at the speed of light, you could get to where you wanted to be instantly. Now, you wouldn't be you because you have no mass anymore, but yeah, that's just crazy, right? It's just crazy thinking. I had an idea for a book. I remember I was telling Muhammad about this, and I said, how cool would it be, or like if you write a story about humans who learn how to use like a wormhole or something, where they travel to another star, another galaxy, another planet somewhere, and even though they could get there through the wormhole and back through the wormhole, so much time would pass between those. Like, if they went to a planet that was 100 light years away, by the time they got back, it would be 100 years later. Right? So even if they could get there, when they come back, the universe is still moving around, and 100 years would have passed. This is like from Interstellar, right? And it's like, what would that be like? It's like you go somewhere, you hang out, and you come back, and 100 years has passed on this planet, and your child is dead, your great grandfather or grandmother, as far as that works. So, and if you go even further, it's like you would come back thousands of years later. So we think of, again, time for us is different. So everything is relatable. This is the whole concept of the cosmic matters, right? Of this matters, is that it only matters to you. Nothing matters unless you make it matter, because everything in the universe you are creating yourself. And this is more of a concept that we're going to talk about as we go down the line. But all these illusionary concepts, space, time, distance, your ego, all these things they're not real. They're not. They are the universe playing a game on you. And that's more philosophy stuff, and it's where we'll go down. And this is, again, what I was trying to explain to Jeffrey. And it's just it's a facade. It's a facade of the universe saying, I just want to play a game for a little bit, and that game is we're going to call Matt, or we're going to call you, or we're going to call Dry Mariner, or Millie J, or all right. I don't want to go down that road. I've gone on enough tangents to lose my way already. So let me backtrack a little bit more. So here's what I wanted to do. So our perception number. So I went through the whole millions, billions. For those of you that weren't here, again, a million. If you wanted to count a million seconds, it would take you 11 days. If you wanted to count a billion seconds, it would take 31 years. If you wanted to count to a trillion seconds, it would take 31,000 years. And then there's things in the universe called septillions, and it gets bigger and bigger. I think I think the biggest number that officially was used is something called a Googleplexus, or Googleplex, if I'm correct. And I think it was like 10 with a million zeros. I don't know. Why am I trying to? We have the internet. What is the biggest number? Now, obviously, we know infinity can go on for bigger, but yeah. There isn't the biggest number, but for any number that you can name, you can always add one to it, and it gets bigger, right? So while we have many names for very large numbers, like a Google, which is GOOGOL, and a Googleplex, which is GOOGOPLEX, they're still finite numbers, right? Yeah. So how big is a Googleplex? A Google is 10 to the 100th power, and a Googleplex is 10 to a Google. So 10 with 100 zeros is a Google, and a Googleplex is 10 to 10 with 100 zeros on top of it. Whatever. I think that they come up with the number. I think, like, in order to officially be a number, it has to be actually used for it has to be used in some kind of mathematical equation to do something. Like, it has to be a relevant number. So I think that was like the biggest one by 100 zeros, right? So we're just talking about a trillion. A trillion is 10 followed by how many zeros? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 8. So that's we're just talking about 8 zeros. So, and we're baffled by how big that is, and these other numbers are existence. And the reason why these numbers are in existence, because, all right, so let me explain where this came from. So I used to do these talks with Muhammad. We would do them every day during COVID. We did a lot of talks. And at one point I said, there are more stars in the sky than there are grains of sand on planet Earth, right? And I said it because I heard somebody say that at some point, and I accepted it as truth. I didn't look into it. I just accepted it as truth. And so I called myself to the carpet during that podcast, and I was like, is that true? Like, I've said this. He didn't call me to the carpet. I called myself to the carpet. I'm like, I wonder if this is actually true. I've said this before. I believe it, but I've never put any actual thought into it. I must have heard somebody say it, and I believed it. So we looked it up, and I looked it up, and I looked it up again today. So grains of sand, and you can go to I'd use Grok, but you can go to Grok or ChatGPT and look this up. So, but the number of grains of sand on planet Earth is anywhere from 10 to the 20th power, which is a 10 with 20 zeros on the end of it, to 10 to the 21st power, which is again 10 with 21 zeros on it. So anyway, so anywhere between there. And again, this is so that's what I came up with. If they did the math, I didn't read the whole thing. They did the math to figure out, the volume of the Earth and how much sand there is and size of grains of sand. And someone much smarter than me did the actual math. I'm taking the answers. I'm just the dumb jock who's gonna take the answers from the smart kid. All right. So, so that's that. So now, expected number of stars in the universe, or countable, and again, how do they figure this out? They didn't count them. It would take more than 31,000 years to count them all. So stars in the universe, they find there's anywhere between 10 to the 22nd power up to 10 to the 24th power. So that means that there are anywhere from, so not only is there more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet Earth, but there is anywhere from 100 to 10,000 times more stars in the universe than grains of sand on planet Earth. So next time you go to the beach, pick up some sand, right? And just let it fall through your hands, right? And then look at what's left on your hand. And then each one of those is equal to 10,000 universes. 10,000 stars. 10,000 universes. It's 10,000 stars that are in our universe, which is in the middle of a black hole. But that's a whole nother. Actually, we're probably on the out. After I thought we were in the middle of a black hole, but now after listening to Brian Cox yesterday, I think we're on the outside of a black hole that's expanding. Right. Still working on that hypothesis. So I'm going to put more time into it. But anyway. So yeah, go to the beach, do that if you're somewhere where you can get to a beach, and then just think about every grain of sand being 10,000 stars. It's crazy, right? So that's how much is out here and what's going on. We're just little, and when I saw, I forget which video I was watching, but it was about the astronauts, and they talked about, turning around and looking at Earth. And one of the astronauts saying, I wish I could just take every politician and bring them out here and just to look at the Earth from the moon or from space. And it talks about, I don't know this, I'm just rehashing words, but he said it puts so much perspective on how small we are, and how important it is that we get along. We don't destroy this place because it's what we have. So I sell solar panels, and I talk to people all the time about, the environment. And I hate to say we're ruining the environment, because we're not ruining the environment. The environment's going to be here. The Earth is going to be here. It's been here a long time before us, and it'll be here a long time after us. And so it's not the environment. It's our environment. It's the environment we need to survive. So it's like we should do these things to protect us. Not like we don't need Earth Day. Earth is fine. Earth will be just great. If, as George Carlin has this famous speech that he does, he's like, if the Earth, we talk about, we think some plastic bags and some styrofoam cups are going to bother this blue-green ball that's been floating around the sun for, almost 4 billion years. It's been here for 4 billion years. We've been here for maybe 100,000, maybe 200,000 years. And we think we're going to somehow destroy this whole thing. Now, because we say the Earth will be destroyed, because, again, we put everything in terms of us, right? We're important. The Earth won't be destroyed. We will be destroyed. We will go away. Global warming doesn't mean anything there. The Earth can care less. It could care less about ice ages. It could care less about, storms and tropical storms and blah blah blah. There's a planet out there, Venus, that if we went there, we would die before we even hit the ground. Because it's got a runaway greenhouse effect. It doesn't by the way, Venus isn't like, because that would be a horrible environment for us. Venus is just fine. You know, we go, it's a deadly planet, but only deadly to us. So this is the whole thing about concepts of like aliens coming from other planets. It's like, why would we think aliens, any kind of alien life? Now, of course, we have to define what life means, right? We don't have a clear definition of that. We don't have a clear definition of anything, to tell you the truth, but that's a whole nother show. But the concept of the that aliens would evolve and look with eyes like us, and you know, two bipedal things, and they'd be the same size of us. I did a video on TikTok, and I talked about the size of things. Like maybe like there's a star. It's I think it's Orion's shoulder, left shoulder, called Betelgeuse. And I wish I had the notes in front of me, but I can go to the internet. How many suns can fit into Betelgeuse? So Betelgeuse, it's not Betelgeuse. I think it's Betelgeuse or whatever. So that's one of the largest stars out there. All right. So again, talking about size of things, and I haven't got to the small yet. I'm going to get there before the end of the video, but I do have to 11:30. I got to make sure we watch the Alan Watts part, because it's I got a quick 4-minute Alan Watts video that I definitely want to share with you guys today. But so think of our sun, all right, and how big our sun is. We're trapped in the gravity of our sun, and we don't really get it. But you can fit close to 2 million Earths into our sun, into the volume of our sun. So that's how big the sun is, right? So the sun is huge. So when I think of it's like when I hear people, I saw this thing where it's like I think it was South Carolina, where they wanted to put a solar like a solar plant, and they were like, it's going to drain the sun. And it's like, is it really? Like you really don't understand the concepts of how big the sun is and how big the earth is. Like the sun puts more energy on the earth in 1 hour than all humanity uses in an entire year. All right, so we just have to collect it. Everything we need is given to us by the universe. We need food, we need water. Water is the most abundant thing on this planet. Food just grows out of the ground. It's like we can eat so many things. You know, energy, if we need energy, like we get energy from everywhere. We can tidal energy, you know, sun energy, wind energy. We can use waves. We can use obviously fossil fuels, nuclear. Like there's so much energy, but we're like, oh, it's scarce. Like we need to do this. And so it's just crazy to think about. But that's a whole nother show. We're not going to go into all that. But the point being is, what was my point? Oh, suns, right? Man, so many tangents I go down. So 2 million Earths could fit into our sun. So how many suns? Soul, SOL. How many suns can we fit? I didn't even think of that. Soul. We call the sun soul. SOL, right? So thinking of that as the soul. How many suns can fit into Betelgeuse? And the answer, if you haven't looked it up already, is 1.2 billion suns. 1.2 billion of our sun that can fit 2 million Earths in it. 1.2 billion of those suns can fit into Betelgeuse. That's how big that star is, right? So that's just, again, these are the concepts that you say the numbers, it doesn't really fit, but you think about it for a little bit and you're like, wow, you know, like this is the universe we live in. but it's only big compared to like, because we compare it to us, right? We're comparing it because we're important, right? We're what matters. So anyway, there was a reason for me going into that, right? Trying to remember. Grains of sand, stars in the universe. That's one star in the universe. There was something I was going with that. Anyway, so now we're talking about how many stars there are. We're talking about the big and the small of things. So let's go the other direction. So the universe, hopefully by this point, you're like, wow, it's really big. Because we're just talking about all the things in the universe. Think about how much space there is between those things. Like there's just the empty amount of space. The stars give us realization that let us know that what's going on in the space. Like I was talking about earlier in the podcast, I was talking about how space is expanding at the speed of light, and at some point it's expanding in all directions at the same time. So at some point we won't actually be able to see, because space is expanding at the speed of light. That means all the galaxies are spreading apart from each other at the speed of light, or faster than the speed of light. Because so if that's actually happening, so like we don't actually know how many stars there are in the universe, because the universe is, there's things that have passed, they're so far away from us that the light, because the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light, the light from those stars or galaxies can't get to us because they're too far away. They're too far away, so the light that's traveling towards us can't get here fast enough. Like because the universe is expanding faster than the light is traveling towards us. And so as the universe continues to expand, this was the concept of one of the ways that they think the universe could potentially end is heat death, because basically it keeps expanding to the point where everything just goes out. The entropy of the universe goes away. But the concept is, as time goes on, we won't be able to see any more galaxies, because as more and more things pass, as it keeps expanding outward, things keep expanding past that, I don't want to call it an event horizon. I want to just call it the edge of the universe, where the light can't reach us anymore. So even though it's as fast as light goes, if that galaxy now goes past that threshold, we can't see it. So it's actually going to get to a point. Now, this will be billions of years in the future, but and maybe trillions of years in the future. But it will get to the point where, if humans are still a thing, or whatever it is that's living on this planet, if the planet's still here by that time, we wouldn't think there was any other galaxies. We would think our galaxy is the only galaxy, because when we looked in the sky, even if no matter what instruments we had, we wouldn't see the light from these other galaxies, wouldn't reach us anymore, because they're too far away. And the light is not, the universe is expanding faster than the speed of light for that light to reach us. And by the way, if you keep going down that path, eventually we get to the point where even all the other stars in our universe, or excuse me, in our galaxy, in the Milky Way, would be so far away that the light from those stars, and we would just think, oh, there's one star, ours. And eventually, as those things keep spreading out, we wouldn't even get the light from our sun anymore. So, and then, by the way, then if you keep going, then obviously we would lose all the planets, and we keep going, and we would lose. We wouldn't be able to see down the street. We would get actually expanded apart, all the molecules in our body. But anyway, that is our body would be the entire expanse of the universe. It's just, can't think about it too hard. Anyway, so before I get to Alan, I'll come up with this last point. So we looked up the grains of sand, we looked up the stars in the universe, and there's 100 to 10,000 stars for every grain of sand on planet Earth. But then I heard Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about something, and he said something about a glass of water. And he's like, so we're talking about the big and how big everything is and how much space there is out there, and trying to conceptualize it in this evolved, ape brain that we got. But then you go to the small. How much is in the other direction? So no matter how many stars we're talking about in the universe, so then I looked up atoms, right? Because we talk about atoms a lot. Water is H2O, right? What is H2O? It's 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. And we talk about those things in the same way we talk about big numbers. We talk about small numbers, like atoms. Yeah, you go and I had a one of my representatives, one of the guys who used to work for me, my coworkers, John Bradley. John, miss you, buddy. So he was the valedictorian at Stony Brook, and back in 1999, a long time ago. And I remember him doing. He's a doctor now, and I remember him doing organic chemistry, and he was walking around with all these wood balls and sticks. Pause, right? So, and he was talking about making covalent bonds, and doing all the different things, learning all the carbon, all the different ways that carbon folds to make different proteins, and blah blah blah, and DNA and RNA and all that stuff, right? So, doing orgochem, right? And we take a water. It's like, oh, it's 2 hydrogens and 1 oxygen, and that's what that is. And we talk about atoms and molecules in the same way we talk about stars. We know they're small, but how small are they? So we talked about, so there's more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on planet Earth. But then if you want to go the other way, this is what Neil said, and then I looked it up because you can't trust anybody. There are more atoms in a glass of water, regular glass, than there are stars in the universe. So this isn't a glass, but if I poured this into a glass, more atoms, each H's and O's in this thing of water than all the stars, all these things we talked about as far as like the ultra deep field and 10,000 galaxies, each with 100 million to a billion stars in it, and all these things we've been talking about. And there's more atoms in a glass of water. So talking about going small, just one glass of water. And so, by the way, there's 8.36 times 10 to the 25th power is the estimate for a number of atoms in a glass of water. So not only is there more atoms in a glass of water, but there are anywhere between 80 to 800 times more atoms in a glass of water than there are stars in the universe. So how many atoms are in the universe, right? So, so when we're talking about big and small, I just remember, I'm pretty sure it was Men in Black 1. Almost positive it was Men in Black 1, where it is Men in Black 1. So like in the end credits, they have like the alien, like they have like the whole, if you haven't watched Men in Black 1, spoilers, but you've had 20 something years to watch Men in Black. But Orion, the name of the cat, it's on Orion's belt. The universe is on, I think it was the galaxy. I don't know if it's galaxy or the universe. Pretty sure it was the galaxy. It was on Orion's belt, right? And the concept was that Orion, the cat, had a collar, and on it was like a universe inside a little ball, marble that was in there. And that marble, at the end of Men in Black, they do this animation where these aliens are just picking up these like they zoom out from Earth to the Milky Way to our galaxy to our universe, and then they show like it's all really in a marble, and there's these aliens that are just playing with the marbles, right? So the concept is what's big and what's small. What does that even mean? Alan talks about how wood wouldn't be hard unless there's soft skin to feel it. like this, the concept of something being a tree being hard, the concept of something being hard has to have something soft to pull out that concept. If there was no soft skin, there would be no hard wood. All right. So as far, again, pause. As far as the tree bark goes. So the whole concept that we're getting at, and I'm hinting at, I'm not really spending a lot of time today, but we will be talking more and more about, and as we go into this concept with Alan Watts, is that, and the whole reason why we're calling this the This Matters series of podcasts, and this is the Cosmic Matters one, is it only matters to you. Like everything, when we look, we are creating everything that we see. All these big things, all these small things, all these atoms are in you. All these atoms make up the universe. What is the difference? There is no difference. Neil deGrasse Tyson does this whole thing where he talks about you are made up of the same elements, chemically the same as the universe. So there's no weirdness. He talks about when I look up, some people, when they look up in the sky and they start thinking about these things that we talk about, they feel small because the universe is so big. But he talks about, by the way, you can look up this video. It's called The Most Amazing Fact. I think it's what it's called, by Neil deGrasse Tyson. But he says, he looks into the sky, and people, when they look in the sky, they feel small because the universe is so big and they're small. But he's like, but I feel big. He's like, I feel there is no difference between me and these things, because we are made up of all the things that are out there, and out there doesn't mean anything. We're floating around in the out there. We just feel like we're not. We feel separate. And when we finally get to the concept of we're not separate, we're not different. All the atoms that I'm breathing in and breathing out during this podcast have traveled out into the atmosphere and have gone and someone else has breathed those things in, and it's created a part of them. And some of them are going to go out into space. They're going to escape the trajectory and go into space. And so what is the difference? What's the difference between you? So if the sun is bright, it's because it's only bright because I have eyes that are taking in those sun rays. And so I'm making the sun bright. I'm making the light happen. Because if I didn't exist or you didn't exist, then it wouldn't happen, right? So we are the creators of everything. We are making these things happen. And the universe, which is us, which is not like a separate entity, is just enjoying this. It's enjoying the game. There's so much stuff. Actually, you know what? Let me stop there. Not stop the podcast, but I think this is a perfect time to go into the Alan Watts video. So I'm going to share, because I'm there. It's funny that this just took me naturally through my incoherent babblings. Well, coherent babblings. The path is kind of taking me down to this concept of the video that we're going to watch. So I'm going to pull it up. Do that. Hold on. That is the wrong thing. Add this. Let me remove that from the stage. There we go. Let me bring this guy up. All right. So, and I'll share this video. Let me bring myself down here. I'm going to pause it a couple times as we go through. Yeah, I like this one better. Okay. So this is a 4-minute video, but it's going to take longer because I'm going to pause it a couple times. So let me turn the volume up and let's go. Alan Watts.
You see, the problem is this. We identify in our experience a differentiation between what we do and what happens to us. We have a certain number of actions that we define as voluntary, and we feel in control of those. And then over against that, there is all those things that are involuntary. But the dividing line between these two is very arbitrary. Because, for example, When you move your hand, you feel that you decide whether to open it or to close it. But then ask yourself, how do you decide? When you decide to open your hand, do you first decide to decide? You don't, do you? You just decide, and how do you do that? And if you don't know how you do it, is it voluntary or involuntary? Let's consider breathing. You can feel that you breathe deliberately. You can control your breath. But when you don't think about it, it goes on. Is it voluntary?
Quick thought about that. So let's start off with, by the way, who just took a deep breath? I know it's almost impossible to hear that and then not yourself go, all right, so I did it. I made it happen. But I've been breathing this entire podcast and not thinking about it at all. But I want to just talk about that concept that he just said. How do you decide? How do you decide to decide? Where does that decision come from? And he's going to talk about this more in a second. But the thought process. Sorry, there's another caught myself. We do all these things and we don't understand. So I was talking about how you're shining the sun, which Alan will probably say as well. And you're doing these things and the universe is laughing at you, right? Your true self in the background is watching you try to figure this stuff out, but it already knows. You already know. And this is why things that matter only matter to you. Like you're creating this because of the fact that you, the small you versus the big you, is just a version of the big you. Everything that we do, we don't know how we do it. I do not know how I am saying these words right now. I don't know where they're coming from. I don't think about them before I say them. I'm trying to do that right now. Like I'm trying to think about what I'm going to say before I say it, and I can't do it. I just talk. I don't know how I'm forming my mouth to move around to make these words. I know like I'm blinking. I don't know how I'm doing that. I don't know how to do anything. It's just knowledge that I have without any training on how to do it. And so this is just proof that the universe knows how to do everything. The universe is already it's moving you around, and you are knowledgeable. So if I can move my hand, then I can make the sun shine, right? But we see this as a voluntary thing because I'm doing it, even though I don't know how I'm doing it. And we see the sun shining, and we go, well, I can't turn it on and off by just thinking about it voluntarily, so therefore I'm not doing it. But I also can't stop or start my heart, right? So we would say I'm making my heart beat, right? I'm personally doing it, but I can't stop it. I don't want to stop it, obviously, but I don't know how I'm doing that. So is that voluntary or involuntary? Am I doing that or am I not doing that? All right. So if I'm making my heart beat, how come I'm not shining the sun? Why is one thing different than the other? Anyway. Hey, what's up, Anthony? So let's go back. So I just wanted to put these concepts and ideas into your mind, and we'll go back to some Alan.
Or involuntary. And so we come to have a very arbitrary definition of self. That much of my activity which I feel I do. And that then doesn't include breathing most of the time. It doesn't include the heartbeats. It doesn't include the activity of the glands. It doesn't include digestion. It doesn't include how you shape your bones, circulate your blood. Do you or do you not do these things? Now, if you get with yourself and you find out that you are all of yourself, a very strange thing happens. You find that your body knows that you are one with the universe. In other words, that the so-called involuntary circulation of your blood is one continuous process with the stars shining. If you find out that it's you who circulates your blood, you will at the same moment find out that you are shining the sun. Because your physical organism is one continuous process with everything else that's going on. Just as the waves are continuous with the ocean, your body.
So I want to talk about that. So again, these are concepts that if you've never been introduced to them before, they don't make sense. It sounds ridiculous, right? It's like, wait a second, I'm circulating my blood, so I'm shining the stars. What does that mean? How does that work? Sorry. The idea is, what is the difference, right? Here's behind me. There's the Eye of God nebula. Doesn't that look like your eye? Right? And this is not some woo-woo thing. This is not like like everything that's going on in your body right now, you would say you're doing it. I'm breathing, I'm pumping my blood, I'm digesting food. We say these things, but we aren't. We're saying I'm doing it, but what is the difference between you're doing it inside your body as opposed to you doing it outside your body? You're not controlling it either way, like voluntarily controlling it. So now you're saying, well, it's inside my body. Okay, well, where does your body end and where does the rest of the universe begin, right? Because the minute you stop breathing, you will die, right? What you consider your body will stop functioning, right? So you're breathing in and out constantly, like you and if you stop doing that, if you stop interacting with the universe, back in the day when they used to tar and feather people, right, they would die immediately. Why? Because the gas exchange from your skin to the outside world would stop, right, and you would die. All your pores would fill up and you die. So if you're constantly exchanging, if you think of your body as, so this is going to be a whole nother Alan Watts video, but whatever. Not everyone will be at the same podcast, right? So Alan has a whole nother video where he talks about a river, and he's like, if you have a river and you go out and you look and you see a whirlpool one day, and you see like it's a whirlpool, right? So the water's coming down, it's hitting some rocks or whatever, making a whirlpool. And if you look at that whirlpool, you would say that's a whirlpool. You don't say it's the river. If you focus in on the whirlpool, you say, oh, look, there's a whirlpool going on, because we have a word for that as if it's a thing. And so is that really a thing? Is it a person, place, or being? No, it's what the river is doing at that particular place. It's actually a verb. The river is whirlpooling. There isn't a whirlpool. What all the whirlpool is what the river is doing. The water's going in, it's going in a circle, and it's going out. So isn't that what the energy is doing of the universe is doing to you? Isn't it going in, and maybe it's firing your cells, it's giving you energy, whatever, and then you're pooping it out, you're breathing it out, I sneezed and coughed a couple times, and so waste is coming out. So what are you to the universe then? You are just the river, the universe, peopling, personing. It's just a form. It's a form that the universe is taking, but we want to see ourselves as something separate. We want to say, I am me, I'm doing something, and I'm separate from the universe. I'm looking at the universe. That star is not me, but there's no separation. It's a game. It's an illusion, right? And we'll talk about why the universe is playing that game. It's a whole nother podcast. But understand, and again, it's not a concept that you have to believe in at all. It's just something we're entertaining your brain with a new thought, right? we just want you to chew this up a little bit in your head. So the concept of the whirlpool is, again, water's going in, it's doing something, and every day, if you walked outside every day and you looked at that whirlpool, you would say it's the same whirlpool. You would go, oh look, the whirlpool's still there, right? It's the same one I saw yesterday, the same one I saw an hour ago. Yeah, I go out every hour, I look, and it's the same whirlpool. And this is what we see in us, right? But you know that things have changed, right? So as the river runs to the whirlpool, it's going to erode the rocks a little bit. It's going to change, how big it is, how small it is. It's never the exact same whirlpool, because it's kind of in the same spot and it looks about the same as it used to. You say it's the same whirlpool. This is what we do with humans. We go, oh, Matt looks the same as, but if you looked at me, if you looked at a picture of me from 25 years ago, it doesn't look like me at all. I look very different. Now it does look like me in some ways, but it's as similar to me that you can say that you go, oh, look, it looks like the same kind of person, but I'm completely different. All my cells have changed. Everything has changed. The universe has gone through me and changed, pause again, right? I like that whole pause thing, right? So, but the universe, I've changed multiple times. So what is it? So am I a noun or a verb then? Right? What is it about me that makes me me? And why do we consider ourselves separate or something separate from the universe? So again, your circulatory system, what he's saying here is, when you try to think about what you are, it's an arbitrary discussion. You make up some things that you say make up you, and you're not including everything that's you. And that's fine, that's what we do. So anyway, all right, let's go back to the video.
Is continuous with the total energy system of the cosmos, and it's all you. Only you're playing the game that you're only this bit of it. But as I tried to explain, there are in physical reality no such things as separate events. Doesn't it really astonish you that you are this fantastically complex thing, and that you're doing all of this and you never had any education in how to do it? You never learned, but you're this miracle? Well, the point is that from a strictly physical, scientific standpoint, this organism is a continuous energy with everything else that's going on. And if I am my foot, I am the sun. Only we've got this little partial view. We've got the idea that, no, I'm just something in this body, the ego. That's a joke. The ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. It's like a radar on a ship. The radar on a ship is a troubleshooter. Is there anything in the way? And conscious attention is a designed function of the brain to scan the environment, like a radar does, and note for any trouble-making changes. But if you identify yourself with your troubleshooter, then naturally you define yourself as being in a perpetual state of anxiety. And the moment we cease to identify with the ego and become aware that we are the whole organism, you realize as the first thing how harmonious it all is. Because your organism is a miracle of harmony. All this thing functioning together. Even those corpuscles and creatures that are fighting each other in the bloodstream and eating each other up. If they weren't doing that, you wouldn't be healthy. So what is discord at one level of your being is harmony at a higher level. And you begin to realize that, and you begin to be aware too that the discords of your life and the discords of people's life, which are a fight at one level, at a higher level of the universe, are healthy and harmonious.
All right, so I want to talk about that concept for a second here. As far as, I thought that was really awesome. So the concept that, when you look at your blood, if you, I had another video I did with Muhammad, and we talked about Another we talked about the percentage of your body. Actually, let's look it up right now. That is actual human, right? So we would say we are human because we have human DNA, right? We have the DNA, creates amino acids that then shape our body and make us who we are, right? And that's so we're human. But I'm going to ask how. Oh, well, let's see. What percentage of our cells have human DNA? The answer is, well, before I give you the answer, what do you think? What percentage of the cells of your body have actual human DNA in it? Right? Because you're you, right? You're the you're you. All right, let me remove this really quickly. I'm going to give you the answer. Here it comes. So the answer is approximately 43%. 43% of your body's cells are human cells. The remaining 57% are microbial cells, such as bacteria, that live in your body, and your human DNA is found in your human cells, including junk DNA, blah, 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 right? So 43% of you is you, what you would consider your DNA. 57% is bacteria and other stuff, right? So what do you mean when you say you? What do you mean? Oh, it's ridiculous to say you are shining the sun. You are the same as the universe. I'm me. Well, what are you talking about? What is this you that you're referring to? You who doesn't know how to move your hand, you who doesn't know how to beat your heart, you who breathes and doesn't know what they're doing, and then sometimes they breathe. If you actually had to control your breath, if you actually had to voluntarily like breathe all day long and you just had to think about it, like it would take up your whole day. You would forget it. You probably die. All right, you start coughing and everything because it's a pain in the ass to try to breathe without to consciously think about breathing. So all these things are going on, and this concept of you is just a made up concept. It's a farce. It's the universe laughing at you. It's the universe laughing at itself. And one of the things where we'll talk about, actually, I have a video already. It's the only video that's posted on my page from the Cosmic Matters, is about Alan Watts talking about the dream. And if you had the power to dream what you wanted to dream. And so the concept is that the universe can do whatever it wants. And since it's going to be around for infinity, it makes all these small things, all these big things, all this scale we've been talking about this entire couple hours here is made by the universe. And then it makes you, and you are the universe, forgetting that you're the universe. Because if you're going to be around forever, that's kind of boring. If you know you have the power to always win, like why? And we match the universe. Everything that we do matches what happens in the universe. the eye, right? If you look at so we get excited about the things that the universe gets excited about. Like, look at this picture here. Let me pull this up. We talked about this picture last episode with the Great Attractor and Virgo. Well, what does this look like? Doesn't this look like your nervous system? Doesn't this look like, if I took these words out of here and just said this was your nervous system, you would probably be like, yeah, that's fine. If I said this was your circulatory system, doesn't this look exactly like you? So why are you separate? Why are you different? Why do you see yourself as small and the universe is big, as opposed to you are the universe, you are big? I actually just made a video about this with Socrates. Socrates is talking to one of his pupils, and he says, why do you think when you look in the sky, what do most people think that about the sun? And the pupil says, well, it's obvious, the sun goes around the earth. And he says, well, why do you think that's obvious? He's like, well, you can see it. There it goes. It rises in the east and it sets in the west, and it's obviously going around, and then it's dark at night, so it's on the other side of the earth, the round earth, flat earthers. And so obviously it's going around the earth. And Socrates says, well, what would it look like if the sun was stationary and the earth was just spinning? It would look like exactly like it does, right? But we see ourselves as the important part, so therefore the sun's going around us. That's why it looks to us. It doesn't look like, because we don't feel like we're spinning. But the concept is we relate everything back to us. So why are we against saying that everything is us? I don't know. It's just some thoughts here. So let's finish up this Alan Watts part. And Anthony, I saw you wrestle on comments, but I didn't get to read it all. Magnetic pulse or something. Yeah. Okay.
And you suddenly realize that everything that you are...
Hold on. Oh, he's back. There he is. I'm going to go back a little bit, and then we'll wrap this up without me interrupting anymore.
Level of the universe are healthy and harmonious. And you suddenly realize that everything that you are and do is at that level as magnificent and as free of any blemish as the patterns in waves, the markings in marble, the way a cat moves, and that this world is really okay and can't be anything else, because otherwise it couldn't exist. So then, if you awaken from this illusion, you can feel yourself not as a stranger in the world, not as something here on probation, not as something that has arrived here by fluke, but you can begin to feel your own existence as absolutely fundamental. What you are basically, deep, deep down, far, far in, is simply the fabric and structure of existence itself. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality, not God in a politically kingly sense, but God in the sense of being the self, the deep down basic whatever there is. And you're all that, only you're pretending you're not.
All right. So that being said, hopefully this concept sunk in a little bit more. It's something to play with. Again, who knows if it's right, if anything's right. We're just trying to figure it out. That's what we're doing. And talking about you are the same as the universe. We do the same things that the universe does. The universe is literally like, we love examining ourselves, right? You get a bump on your arm, you're like, look at this bump, look at this, it's a little discolored. And you get a pimple, you're like, oh man, what's it like? What's it going to be like to squirt it? Should I what is it, pinch it? Should I not? You play with it, your tooth moves around, you're like, oh, look at this, and you're playing with it. So we're fascinated by ourselves, and that's what the universe is. The universe is fascinated by itself, and the only way it can look at itself is through us, right? Like how amazing this is. And so take the time And this is why it matters, because it's what the universe wants. It wants this, all the trials and tribulations. And one of the things that was just said in that video is all of the, we sit around, we wish for, world peace. I wish everything was harmonious, but maybe that would be bad for the universe. Maybe just like they talk about, like in your blood, and you have this fight that's going on in your system all the time. Where if you took a magnifying glass and you put your blood under magnification, you saw all the things going on, red blood cells, white blood cells, and different bacteria, and all the things that are happening without your knowledge, and you feel healthy, and all that conflict that's going on. If you watch, I talked about the size of the atoms, but like you get a little cut or an infection or something, and how what that battle is like. Okay, that's keeping you healthy. All that fight and strife is you healthy at this level of magnification. And we'll do a whole video about this. But so maybe all of the turmoil and strife that's going on this little tiny planet is what is important for the universe to be healthy and in whole. And so the idea, again, not to go morbid or anything, but is that, we're all going to pass away. We're all going to die, right? But do we really die? Do we really go anywhere? And when you say I am going to die, what does that really mean? If we don't even know what I is, what you are, if we don't have a good definition for that, what do you mean that you're going to die? Does the whirlpool actually die when you look in a river, or does the whirlpool, is this the river doing something else and the whirlpool has gone away? We still say the river is there, right? We don't say the river is dead, but the whirlpool has just gone away. And all I was a verb, the river whirlpooling. And so all you are is the universe mewing, or mattering. In that sense, so the little you. And so it's, to me, the concept of dying, and we'll talk about that in another episode here, is the fear of that is, and the death of whatever I'm calling me is just fake. It's just another event. It's like an event of me tripping, or it's an event of me eating some food and enjoying it. It's just another event of me, because me is the entire universe, and the universe wants to do something. It just wants to enjoy itself because it's going to be here forever. And so what does it do? It creates a whole bunch of little people on this particular rock. It created some organisms that can examine itself, and it started examining the cosmos and the insides and the little things about it, and and it's just fun because it's going to be here forever anyway. So what I consider Matthew Washington might not exist forever, but I exist forever, just as you will, because we're the same. Anyway, we're gonna wrap it up for Cosmic Matters. We're gonna go into this a lot more. Again, just to promote again, feel free, please like, comment, share. If you have, I respond to every single comment. If you want to support the channel, any of those types of things would be helpful. You can check out our Patreon, or at patreon.com, This Matters Podcast. And this is just one of the This Matters videos that I'll be doing. We have Cosmic Matters, which is what we do today. We do every Sunday, 10 o'clock. I will be doing Future Matters, which I'll be talking about Tesla, the tech world, the future world. We'll talk about some SpaceX, some AI, all that type of stuff. That's what the Future Matters is. We'll be talking about where humans are going in general, as far as that goes. I'll be doing some Money Matters talks, which we'll be talking about finance and wealth building. We'll have the You Matters, or You Matter, which we'll talk about health, and personal development. And then if you want to jump on the Patreon, you can see some Matt Matters, just like my personal life, if you want to find out a little bit about me. So, but if you spend 1 minute or the entire hour here, 2 hours, an hour and a half, whatever we are. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy a glorious Sunday, the rest of your day, if you're not watching this on actual Sunday. And yeah, we'll be back here Sunday at 10 o'clock. The more things will be coming. We got merch coming. I got a friend of mine working on some logos and some interesting stuff. And I'm just going to be consistent, continue to put this out there, and hopefully I can entertain you guys and enjoy doing what I love most, which is talking to people about concepts that matter. All right. On that note, I will see everyone next week, and watch out for more videos coming this week on the YouTube channel and on the TikTok. See you soon.